There's a lot of interesting things specifically around stablecoins, and as we try to define the digital asset class, we talk about Bitcoin as digital gold, and then there's this big sliver of stablecoins. Mm-hmm. Tell us more about the evolution of Dai, where the idea came from, where we are now, and then where it's going.
Yeah, so it's actually been about 5 years. Yeah. So the project was conceived back on the BitShares blockchain, if you remember that. So BitShares came out, I think the idea was posed in 2013 and it was launched in 2014, about the same time as the Ethereum white paper, but BitShares was real, so it actually had a tangible thing you could use. Mm-hmm. With BitShares was the idea that Bitcoin's core innovation was the blockchain, mm-hmm. and that now you could start programming other things on this infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that got programmed on BitShares was a token called BitUSD. Mm-hmm. And BitUSD was the seed idea for Dai. It was very similar. Mm-hmm. It had 3 things that I'd say were very different. One is that it was on the delegated proof of stake consensus mechanism, mm-hmm. which is what BitShares uses. That was replaced by Ethereum. Mm-hmm. The other was that it only had one collateral type, which was BitShares tokens. Mm-hmm. That's similar to what we have today, but it's, I want to stress that it's very important we expand the collateral portfolio because one collateral type can only scale so far. And 3, this isn't a technical feature, but more of a community constraint, mm-hmm. where they had a very, if you build it, they will come mentality. They didn't believe in engaging with market makers, engaging with companies and businesses to try and distribute the product. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what ultimately led to it not being very well adopted. Mm-hmm. Maker was founded with similar principles, but a different ethos where it's like, we're going to do what it takes to get this thing to work. Sure. We're going to make sure it's technically the best it can be. It's built in Ethereum, so it's the most secure it can be. And we're going to build it in a way that the collateral portfolio can expand beyond one asset so that we can have a more sustainable system to serve a lot of people.
If there was one question that you would want me to ask you, what would that question be?
I would want you to ask me about the Dai Savings Rate. What
about the Dai Savings Rate?
So the Dai Savings Rate is the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Oh, okay.
It's, to me, the killer app of our system. Right now we have, Maker has about 400 live integrations of mm-hmm. Dai. I think you're going to see that number trend up exponentially with the launch of the Dai Savings Rate. It is a rate on your Dai that requires no additional counterparty risk. I mean, if you think about when you deposit, it's really unprecedented. It's as if you were putting deposits. The only institutions that have access to a similar function to the Dai Savings Rate are commercial banks placing excess reserves at the Fed.
At the Fed, yeah.
Because it is the only way you have no liquidity constraint to get a completely risk-free rate of interest on your Dai. So the way it works is you take Dai, you lock it into a smart contract called the Dai Savings Rate. You can pull it out every block, but the moment you put it in, it starts accruing the rate every second. This rate
every second,
which I imagine this rate will be higher than you can get in any high yield savings account over the long run. I don't know what it'll be immediately, but basically, we don't have the operating costs that commercial banks have. So if they are giving you LIBOR for your high yield savings account, we can give you LIBOR plus their operating cost.